Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senator Bill Nelson and NASA Administrator Charles Bolden.
The man I'm about to introduce is a patriot, a leader, and a visionary. He's also someone who knows the importance of America being the leader in science and technology through space exploration. He's been there, done that. He's a Marine general, an aviator, a test pilot, who flew more than 100 missions in Vietnam. He's an astronaut and a veteran of 4 space shuttle flights. I've known him the better part of a quarter of a century. On our space flight, I trusted him with my life, and I would do so again. Ladies and gentlemen, the Administrator of NASA, Charlie Bolden.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for coming out today, as difficult as it may have been to get here. It's good to see a lot of you, and I want to welcome all of you to the Kennedy Space Center. This is a place that's quite close to my heart, and it's a place like no other place on the planet, to be quite honest. It's a place that has, of course, a storied history, being the launch site of so many of humanity's most ambitious and even audacious endeavors, but also a place that has, I can assure you, a storied future. I'm here today to introduce a man who, more than anyone I've met in my career as an officer of Marines and a NASA astronaut, is committed to the arrival of that vibrant future. As the space community knows very well, dreams don't become a reality through wishful thinking alone, much less through highfalutin talk. And even though a steady flow of federal funding may help, that doesn't make things happen. To come true, dreams need to be tested in the crucible of practicality, trial, and error. They need to be calibrated and thought through in painstaking detail so that all the pieces are certain to work together. In this case, to lift us physically, and I dare say emotionally and even spiritually, into the deep frontier, the star-studded universe that all of us are so anxious to explore. The thing that has me so excited about the path forward today is that the man I'm about to introduce understands how critical it is to get that process right, to put it into place an inspired but methodical plan that can really work for America and for the thousands of workers who every day are straining at the bit and giving their best to stretch the boundaries of what humanity can call home. I'm talking about a president who has, even in these tough economic times, has recognized the value of science, engineering, and innovation to this nation's future, to its economy, its health, its national security, and who, in his short tenure, has already, through his budgets and the Recovery Act, lifted the federal investment in civilian research and development to unprecedented heights. A president who has declared that it is essential for our students to get better science and engineering educations, and who has not just said so, but has put into place and obtained generous funding for programs to get them there. A president who has brought hundreds of students into the White House lawn to look through telescopes and meet astronauts like Buzz Aldrin and Sally Ride. And you better believe, from the looks on those kids' faces, they recognize the power of space to inspire. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my greatest honor to introduce to you a man for whom I have the greatest personal respect and admiration. A man who absolutely has the right stuff to lead us into a new era of exploration and discovery. Please join me in welcoming the President of the United States, President Barack Obama.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Please have a seat. Thank you. I want to thank Senator Bill Nelson and NASA Administrator Charlie Bolden for their extraordinary leadership. I want to recognize Dr. Buzz Aldrin as well, who's in the House. Four decades ago, Buzz became a legend, but in the 4 decades since, he's also been one of America's leading visionaries and authorities on human spaceflight. A few people, President Company excluded, can claim the expertise of Buzz and Bill and Charlie when it comes to space exploration. I have to say that few people are as singularly unimpressed by Air Force One as those three. Sure, it's comfortable, but it can't even reach low Earth orbit. And that obviously is in striking contrast to the Falcon 9 rocket we just saw on the launch pad, which will be tested for the very first time in the coming weeks. A couple of other acknowledgments I want to make. We've got Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee from Texas visiting us, a big supporter of the space program. My Director, Office of Science and Technology Policy, in other words, my Chief Science Advisor, John Holdren, is here. And most of all, I want to acknowledge your Congresswoman, Suzanne Cosmos, because every time I meet with her, including the flight down here, she reminds me of how important our NASA programs are and how important this facility is. And she is fighting for every single one of you and for her district and for the jobs in her district. And you should know that you've got a great champion in Congresswoman Cosmos. Please give her a big round of applause. I also want to thank everybody for participating in today's conference. And gathered here are scientists, engineers, business leaders, public servants, and a few more astronauts as well. And last but not least, I want to thank the men and women of NASA for welcoming me to the Kennedy Space Center and for your contributions not only to America but to the world. Here at the Kennedy Space Center, we are surrounded by monuments and milestones of those contributions. It was from here that NASA launched the missions of Mercury and Gemini and Apollo. It was from here that Space Shuttle Discovery, piloted by Charlie Bolden, carried the Hubble telescope into orbit, allowing us to plumb the deepest recesses of our galaxy. And I should point out, by the way, that in my private office, just off the Oval, I've got the picture of Jupiter from the Hubble. So thank you, Charlie, for helping to decorate my office. It was from here that men and women, propelled by sheer nerve and talent, set about pushing the boundaries of humanity's reach. That's the story of NASA. And it's a story that started a little more than half a century ago, far from the Space Coast in a remote and desolate region of what is now called Kazakhstan, because it was from there that the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite to orbit the Earth, which was little more than a few pieces of metal with a transmitter and a battery strapped to the top of a missile. But the world was stunned. Americans were dumbfounded. The Soviets, it was perceived, had taken the lead in a race for which we were not yet fully prepared. But we caught up very quickly. President Eisenhower signed legislation to create NASA and to invest in science and math education from grade school to graduate school. In 1961, President Kennedy boldly declared before a joint session of Congress that the United States would send a man to the moon and return him safely to the Earth within a decade. And as a nation, we set about meeting that goal, reaping rewards that have, in the decades since, touched every facet of our lives. NASA was at the forefront. Many gave their careers to the effort, and some have given far more. In the years that have followed, the space race inspired a generation of scientists and innovators, including, I'm sure, many of you. It's contributed to immeasurable technological advances that have improved our health and well-being, from satellite navigation to water purification, from aerospace manufacturing to medical imaging. Although I have to say, during a meeting right before I came out on stage, somebody said, you know, it's more than just Tang, and I had to point out I actually really like Tang. I thought